Welcome to Voice of Enablement by GKM Buddy, an interview series focusing on key issues affecting the enablement community today. It's a tough market right now. Organizations are cutting staff, pausing investments. How do you make a compelling case for the value of enablement is a core question that we are seeking to answer. So our guest today is Shara Simms. She brings a ton of experience in sales enablement and sales effectiveness, and she's currently heading the enablement at Cloudinary. Shara, pleasure having you on the show. I love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I manage sales enablement at Cloudinary currently. I've been there
Mm-hmm.
for little over a year. Prior to that,
Mm-hmm.
I was with ServiceNow for a couple of years, and then for that, did training in finance in the finance world. So yeah, kind of training and
Mm-hmm.
enablement has been my whole career.
Yeah. Great. Good. Glad to have you on the show, Shara. Looking forward to hearing your perspective on this one. So I think we already touched upon this one. This is kind of a rough patch for the enablement. There are a lot of layoffs happening. Enablement
Mhm.
is seen as a cost center versus the force multiplier. So the very first question that I have is how do you make a compelling case? How do you elevate the role of sales enablement in this unpredictable economy? In front of the CEOs.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a lot of sales enablement leaders and sales enablement professionals probably feel like they can oftentimes act as the glue that connects all the moving pieces and projects at a company and translates that noise, I'll call it, um, down into sales language, into something that's more digestible. Of course, with the partnership of many others, wonderful
Yeah.
product teams and product marketing teams. Um, but a lot of times, what I've found, especially at companies like startup companies or companies experiencing a lot of growth in a short amount of time, um, there will be a large amount of competing projects from different areas around the company. And there's not always that line of sight from sales into everything that's going on. So
Mm,
in my opinion, what you need is a good strategy around sales enablement to kind of act as that blocker from all of that noise and all that competing priorities and projects, and not only determined what is the most impactful information that's going to get down to
mm-hmm.
sales, but how are you going to deliver that to sales? Um,
Mm,
every project or priority, we can't have people reaching out to sales and taking time away and putting time on their calendars. So you really need someone who has that big picture and knows what's
mm-hmm.
going on across the company and that deep understanding of what's going on, who can then take that, translate it down for sales, and act in a critical role to be
Mm-hmm.
again, the liaison between sales and everything else that's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, right, sales enablement is a lot about, orchestrating between multiple teams. Yeah, on what information can we provide to the salespeople in a most efficient manner, rather than, like you said, putting time on their calendar. And
Mhm.
one thing that I've heard in terms of how do you elevate the role is try to tie it to the sales velocity outcomes, right? Because the role of sales enablement is eventually obviously to make the salespeople better. So I think this is where there's the big question that is being asked. Okay, that what is the ROI of enablement? So what is your perspective on this one? Can you share some thoughts on what kind of metrics that you look at, or again, all in order to elevate your role in front of the CEOs?
Yeah, I love that topic of ROI because whether it's enablement or another role, right? ROI is always a difficult topic. And I think
Yeah,
especially so for enablement.
yeah.
I think that the first thing you need to align on is what are the KPIs or the OKRs from the top down, because you're really going to want to align your specific
Mm,
KPIs and OKRs, to those company metrics. Um,
yeah.
for example, is the company looking to increase velocity in closing deals? Are they, as an example, trying to get everyone in the company or everyone in sales on point with the same message for their sales play or for their pitch? Is it product knowledge because there's a new product launch? What is the quarterly or yearly goals of the company, and then how can you align to that? And then from there as well, I think even more importantly is considering the individual roles that you support in the sales teams. So an SDR, for example, and their competencies and what they're tasked to do is going to be significantly different than that of an AE or a solution consultant, for example. So when we're talking high level, you want to make sure that you're, of course, having measurements that are specific to the role. And then from there, again, maybe what I can do is give you an example of something we're doing right now. We're getting really excited about AI, obviously, right? Everyone's kind of getting excited about AI. So in order for us to prove ROI internally right now, we're building out AI simulations and testing the sellers, can they navigate through these different scenarios, and how well do they navigate these scenarios day one versus a quarter down the line. And of course, we'll have different simulations for different roles, but it's really important that you can show that moving the needle and the improvement that has been made from your baseline, which I think I failed to mention that at the beginning. You have to start with a baseline, obviously, right? Talking to your sales leaders, talking to sales, what's their perception of their skill level? How would they rate themselves? How does the sales leaders rate their team? You've got to start with that baseline. They go through your enablement, and then a quarter down the line, a year down the line, do you see that uptick from your baseline? You can't prove your ROI if you don't start there.
Yeah. God, no, I think this is a fresh perspective on looking at the current state right now, and then looking at a quarter down the line. This is what the outcome is, either from a time perspective, how much time are they taking? What is the current workflow versus what it was back then? And then second is in terms of the revenue outcome, the baseline. Okay, this is what we were doing until now, and these are the things that we have done, and this is the outcome that we are trying to deliver. I know I've spoken to a lot of enablement leaders. Everybody is trying to tie the outcomes to the efforts to the sales velocity outcomes, but it's really, really tough because it's not directly influencing. It's most of it's correlated, so it's really hard to build that story.
It is. And one tactic is look at sellers who are actively engaged in your enablement. Are there individuals who have completed your curriculum, and what do their sales cycles look like compared to those who are maybe not actively? With ROI, there's always going to be a little bit of manual effort there, right? So to do that measurement, it is going to take some work, but try that comparison and see, do you see a difference between those who are actively engaged versus those who aren't?
Yeah. And Shara, one of the perspective that I got was, I forgot, somebody said that sales enablement is responsible to sales. They're not responsible for sales. So though they are measured on their attempt is to drive the sales velocity outcomes, but that's not something that is directly in their control, right? The one thing that they try to control is focus on the leading indicators, and that's where everybody spoke about competencies or the rep adoption or making the rep workflows easier, because we know if that is there, then we are able to achieve the lagging metrics, which is the sales velocity outcomes. So how do you go about, like, what is your take on this one? Like, what kind of leading metrics that you take care of, or you focus on to drive reach the lagging metrics?
Yeah. So I think I heard you say about the core competencies, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of have two perspectives here, not two perspectives, but I think 2 points here. The first one is you need to get everyone on a baseline for the core competencies, right? Everyone needs to be able to do things like discovery. Everyone needs to be able to do value selling. one needs to, right? There's some basic skills that are agreed upon within the teams.
Yeah.
However, you're also going to have individuals that are really good in one area and not in another. So I think it's very important that you align very closely with sales leaders to understand what are the core competencies that they're worried about. What is, you're going to do a gap analysis. What is the gap that we're seeing currently? And you're going to want to put your efforts there. If you can show, right, that your time and effort has made an impact, let's just use discovery as the example. That's an area that we're focusing on now internally. If you put your time and effort into getting all of your sales reps to do discovery calls competently and effectively and efficiently, to where you're really getting those pain points, you're really getting measurable impact and value that you could bring, that's going to, I mean, theoretically, that's going to shorten your sales cycle, right? And then increase that sales velocity, because you're going to be uncovering those pain points and talking value much sooner in the conversation. So again, aligning with the sales leaders on what's the gap right now. Are we focusing on discovery? Are we focusing more technical? Do the solution consultants need more technical training? Because where we're lagging is in the demo portion, right? You have to look at, there's a lot of numbers and metrics behind it, right? You have to look and do that gap analysis and figure out where's your focus going to be. And then you can turn around and say, wow, we, on average, this stage 2 lasted for 60 days. Now stage 2 is lasting on average for 40 days. And maybe it's not a direct correlation, but I think we definitely can prove an indirect impact there.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of data-driven sales enablement approaches coming handy, because all of this data that we're talking about, sales managers, they don't have it, right? They don't care much about the competencies, that okay, what competencies my sellers are lacking. And that's where the sales enablement can really be a strategic partner with the sales leader, that hey, we analyze the data, we have all the data, and this is where we think the competencies are lacking. And if we work on this one, if we try to do these behavioral changes, this is the outcome that we'll be able to get. So I think this is where the approach that you spoke about is exactly how do you again be a strategic partner to the frontline sales managers. And that brings one more question, because everybody speaks about that it's not easy to get a buy-in from the frontline sales managers or the sales leaders. So I think this is one approach that you can do, that show them this is the effort that will bring this incremental revenue. But just wanted to take your perspective on again, it really takes a tripod approach to elevate a rep performance, the enablement themselves, the frontline sales managers, and the sellers. So the role of frontline sales managers is also very essential. So can you talk to us more on what kind of goal setting that you do with the sales leaders, and how do you get their buy-in?
Yeah, I'm really lucky, because my company, we've got some wonderful sales leaders who I don't have to work too hard for their buy-in. But I do know that can be an issue, right? One tactic that I think works really well and has worked really well for me, and you mentioned this earlier on the call as well, is enablement is not just about training. What we want to make sure that we convince our sales leaders, and it's not even convincing, it's assuring and partnering with our sales leaders on, is that we're not just trying to deliver a training to you. We're not just trying to take time away from sales. We're trying to make the best use of their time. Maybe that's a training and a curriculum, but maybe it's also looking at the sales tools that are out there and partnering with operations to figure out how can we go deeper into these tools and identify areas that we could be utilizing more efficiently. Maybe it's partnering with the data team and figuring out, are there ways that we can automate pulling data for the team so that they are doing less manual work and prep, and they can spend more time in sales. And I think once you get into the mindset of realizing that enablement is not just training, that there are so many things you can do to help sales manage their time more effectively, more efficiently, that's when you really start that partnership with sales leadership, because they don't just see you as a trainer coming in to take time away from selling and go through, an hour-long webinar. They see you as a true partner who's trying to free up sales time and make the most impactful and efficient use of their time.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Shara, because I've been saying this. Again, India as a market is not very mature in terms of enablement as probably in the US, and a lot of the people that I speak to in this market, they still think of enablement as just training. So I think that's where, and we know like this is just training is just one part of it. That's the other question that I have is on this one is in a market like this, I think that will also help us answer prove our point on that enablement is not just about training. In this time, not a lot of companies are hiring, a lot of reps. So what kind of enablement programs can we run, or how can enablement support reps when, again, when you're not hiring a lot of reps, because obviously they don't need the onboarding training.
Yeah. I'd actually would argue that in times of less onboarding and less hiring, that's when sales enablement actually increases their value during that time.
Yeah.
Onboarding is, of course, a necessity, and a lot of rigor and time and effort should go into it. But when you do onboarding, you want to make it scalable so it's repeatable. And once you get it to that point, you're really able to, or as you said, in times where you're not doing as many hiring for new hires, you're really able to start focusing your attention elsewhere in areas that, I won't use the term neglected, but areas that maybe you didn't have as much time for previously.
Let's prioritize maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the things that we're working on now, just as examples, mentoring programs. Whether you have the most seasoned rep or the greenest, newest rep to the company, there are always going to be opportunities to learn from each other in different skill sets. I look at some of our SDRs as an example, who are just jumping on some of the AI technology, Chat GPT, and all of these other things to help them use their time more efficiently. I want to start setting up some of our more seniored or tenured sales reps to sit and learn and see how are they using these tools to make it more efficient for them. Likewise, you've got your up and coming account executives partnering with the again, more tenured AEs to learn, the ropes. So setting up things like mentorship programs. Again, I don't care if you've been in the role 10 years, 20 years, or you're brand new, be it sales, be it some other job in some other industry, you should always be looking for ways to better yourself and grow. And those are the skill sets that we can start to hone in on and help grow during these times.
Yeah. Always be learning. That's what every enablement person preaches about. But I think this is one other perspective that I've gotten is it's really hard for the enablement to sometimes partner with the tenured reps, because they feel, not every time, but a lot of times they feel that they have done it, they know all these things. But we know, like, right, if you have to evolve, it's always about unlearning and learning new stuff, right? Let's imagine they're not using AI, even though they are doing all of this on their own, they have been doing it, but AI will help them do some of the things more efficiently. So I think that's where you can prioritize your time when you are not hiring a lot of reps. And like you said, when in a market like this, I think even though you're not hiring a lot of reps or there are not a lot of onboarding trainings, but enablement is important more than ever, because selling is super tough. So I think that's where enablement can come handy and can elevate the rep performance.
Yeah. And kind of to add on to that, not only are is hiring low in many companies, but people are getting really stringent on budget for tools and other things. So again, sales enablement can go in and say, let's look at our current tech stack. Let's look at our tools. What are we not using most efficiently? I keep bringing up AI, it's the hot topic right now, but there are so many tools that I didn't realize until I spent the time really starting to dig that we already have that are starting to add these new AI integrations that don't cost any additional money. We're just not taking advantage of them yet. So even if you're at a company that says, we don't have budget for these new tools, we're not investing in new enablement, look at your tools, because I would place a bet that many of them are starting to build out new AI integrations that could up level your sales. So you don't have to go spend money for a new tool necessarily, in all cases. So that's another area that we're focusing on right now while we have the time, is looking at our tools and building those out to be more impactful.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sales tech stack is evolving a lot. They have a lot of tools. There are a lot of tools that have come in the market, and a lot of time it becomes overwhelming for the sales reps. That is where enablement is focusing more time. Is there a consolidation possible?
Yeah.
Can I use one tool to probably do the work of two tools, because there are a lot of advancement that is coming up. So I think again, right, enablement is not just about training, but how can they make the work easier for the salesperson, with in terms of the getting the knowledge, or even the processes, because eventually you're saving time for the sales rep, and he's being more productive. He's spending that time in selling. So I think all of
Yeah.
these things you can focus on, that can be prioritized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Shara, the other question that I have is, I have to bring it up, since you have a lot of training background. There is a forgetting curve, right? People forget 60-70% of the information that you train, and knowledge retention is a big challenge. So can you talk to us more on how do you drive that? How do you drive the knowledge retention? How do you ensure
Yeah.
reinforcement of the knowledge?
I love this topic too, because what we try to do, what I try to do is, adults learn in all different ways. Some people are more visual,
Mm,
some people have to read things. Most adults have to write something down to actually retain more information. So in knowing all of these different ways that the adult brain learns and retains information, there's not going to be a one size fits all at any company. And I think it is so important to understand that. You need to
mm,
offer information in a variety of ways. So
yeah.
anytime we come up with a new training curriculum, a course, whatever it may be, we always try to offer it through different modes. We'll have a live interactive session where people can ask questions and be engaged. We'll have a guide that comes out afterwards that summarizes everything that we did so people can read it. We'll do quizzing, a week later after the information has sunk in to make sure it's retained. Obviously, I don't do things perfectly. No one does things perfectly, but in the ideal world, there would be, a 30, 60, 90-day follow-up
Mm,
on certain topics, and just making sure that that information is retained 30, 60, 90 days out. I also think it is so important to get on some type of cadence for certain topics. So identifying
mm,
on a yearly basis, there are certain skills or knowledge that is going to need to be refreshed. And every year,
mm,
the reps are going to need to refresh. Maybe it's a sales pitch certification. Maybe it's product knowledge, because products are always evolving, right? But get on some type of cadence where it's not a one and done. It's you've taken the training, or you've read the material, or you've gone through some type of role play scenario, but we're going to do it again in 6 months, just a little bit of a different flavor of it, to make sure you've
mm.
retained the information. So I think that reinforcement is key. Not always done perfectly, right? It's hard, but that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think again, like you said, right, adults, I think in a time like this where the attention span has just reduced, it's really, really tough for us to drive the knowledge attention. So I think these cadences or, meeting them where they're working or delivering the right information, I think that is just an attempt, right? You can't have 100% success in everything, but that is
Mhm.
just one attempt so that they at least have some knowledge retention, versus just doing the training and they never going back to do the training or to do the LMS, whatever, training tool that you used. So yeah, I love it. Shara, one question. I know I'm going off topic. There's a lot of rejig happening in enablement right now. You spoke about leveraging AI. Again, I think Gartner spoke about it, that AI is crucial element.
Yeah.
You might not have answer to it. I think nobody knows. But like, what do you think the future of enablement is? Like, where is it heading? What uh, uh,
I think there's always going to be a need. People talk about AI and AI is going to take our jobs and, salespeople's job. There is always going to be a need for that human element, is my belief, or at least for the foreseeable future in my career, right? But what do I think for the future of enablement in general? I think companies truly are seeing and continue to see the value in enablement. I
hmm,
think, again, it stems from a good strategy. Um,
hmm,
Something a bit unique about my background, I think, is that I actually came into training and enablement without any type of sales background. I came from a learning background and a training background without ever doing sales myself. And I think that
hmm,
you're starting to see that trend a lot as well. Instructional designers getting into the space who used to be teachers, people who understand
yeah,
how people learn and think. And I think that I think as sales continues to evolve, we'll start to see that trend as well, with more teachers and people with learning background coming in. And when you can partner that learning background with sales, I think it makes a really wonderful coupling. So I
hmm,
think if anyone's watching this, I think my suggestion would be to take a chance on those people who are maybe a little bit more green to sales, but have a lot of knowledge in adult learning or teaching or instructional design, and who can really take information and turn it around and translate it in
hmm.
a way that adults can digest.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, I think that's again a fresh perspective on, because eventually it is all about making people learn something, and
Mhm.
I think no nobody better than the teachers or instructional designers who knows how to make somebody learn something. But yeah, great, Shara. I think that brings us to the end of this show. It was lovely talking to you. Got a lot of new fresh perspective, and I can't wait to publish this.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Great talking with you. And I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.